I spent all weekend fixing my neighbor's fence after a storm tore it down. The next morning, I found my dog missing and a fresh private property sign on my lawn. He kept barking. I took care of it, my neighbor whispered. I dug through the trash until I found. I live in a small town in Ohio, nothing fancy. Just rows of older houses, big backyards, and neighbors who mostly keep to themselves. My place is quiet. I keep it clean. I work from home, so I'm around a lot. My dog Duke, a golden retriever, was always by my side. He was my best friend. Had him since he was a pup. 13 years. Loyal, sweet, never hurt a soul. The guy who lives next door, Mr. Feldman, moved in about 5 years ago. Retired. Doesn't talk much. He's in his 60s, walks with a cane, always watching from his porch. We've never really connected. He keeps to himself, which is fine. I waved, he rarely waved back. Still, no real issues, until the storm. That weekend, we got hit bad. Wind strong enough to knock down trees. I stayed in, Duke curled at my feet while we watched the power flicker. The next morning, I walked outside and saw that the wooden fence between our properties had fallen. It wasn't just leaning, it was wrecked. Half the posts were cracked at the base, panels lying in the mud. My side was okay, but Feldman's side was torn up. I didn't think twice. I figured I'd fix it. Duke stayed nearby, sniffing around while I worked. I told him to stay close, but he kept going near the open section where our yards connected now. Feldman wasn't outside at all. Not even when I hammered or drilled. I figured maybe he was out of town, or just didn't care. I went to the hardware store, bought new panels, posts, screws. Spent my whole Saturday digging out the old posts, putting in the new ones. It wasn't easy. The ground was still wet, and I worked until dark. I thought maybe Feldman would come out, offer to help, or at least say something. He didn't. Sunday, I finished it. Got everything level. Restained the sections that needed it. Looked good as new. I wiped the sweat from my face, saw Duke sitting near the edge of the yard again, tail wagging like he was proud of me. That night, I gave him an extra treat. Let him sleep at the foot of the bed. The next morning was different. I got up early, made coffee, and called for Duke. He wasn't there. I called again. Walked around the house. Checked the yard. No sign of him. The gate was shut. No holes under the fence. Nothing. Then I saw the sign. A brand new private property, do not enter sign was nailed to the fence. But it was facing my yard. It was clearly on my side of the line. Like a warning meant for me. I stood there staring at it when I saw Feldman sitting out back. Same chair. Same coffee mug. Just staring. I walked over to the fence. Hey, I said. You see my dog this morning? Duke? He didn't even look surprised. Just stared at his coffee. Then he looked up at me, and in a low voice, said, he kept barking. I took care of it. At first, I didn't process it. It felt off, but I wasn't sure what he meant. What do you mean, took care of it? He didn't answer. Just sipped his coffee. Looked away like I was nothing. I felt sick. I checked every inch of my property again. Drove around the neighborhood. Called shelters. Put up posts online. Not a single sign of Duke. But something in my gut kept coming back to that one thing Feldman said. The way he said it. That night, the trash bins were out by the curb. Everyone on the street puts them out Sunday nights for Monday pickup. I waited until it was dark. Pulled on some gloves. Walked over to Feldman's trash can. I lifted the lid and dug past the top layer. Empty cans. Cardboard. Napkins. Then I saw it. Duke's collar. It was dirty. Wet. The tag still attached. Bent a little. Still read Duke in big silver letters. I just froze. I couldn't breathe. I sat down on the curb and stared at it. That was the moment I knew. He did something to my dog. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at the kitchen table, collar on the table in front of me. Kept staring at it like it might tell me what really happened. I wanted to call someone. Police, animal control, anyone. But what would I say? My neighbor whispered something creepy and I found my dog's collar in his trash? They'd ask where the body was. They'd ask if I had proof. I had nothing. Just a sentence and a bad feeling. I decided not to tell anyone yet. Not until I knew more. Next day, I watched Feldman. From my upstairs window. He didn't act any different. Still took his trash out. Still sat on his porch with that same old mug. He even hummed a little. I hadn't heard him hum before. That afternoon, I knocked on his door. My hands were shaking, but I tried to act normal. He opened it just enough to look at me. "I think we need to talk," I said. "About what?" he said, flat. "My dog." He didn't blink. Just said, "I already told you." I stepped forward a little. "What does that mean, exactly?" His face changed then. Real slow. Like a switch. He smiled, but not like a friendly smile. The kind that's more about control than kindness. "You should watch where your dog goes," he said. "Some people don't like being barked at all hours." I stepped back. My heart was pounding. "You did something to him, didn't you?" He didn't answer. Just closed the door. I stood there on his porch for a full minute before I walked away. That night, I started digging again. Not in the trash this time. In the ground. Near the back fence, where Duke liked to bark the most. I brought out a flashlight and a shovel. I must have dug for 2 hours. The dirt was wet, heavy. And then I hit something. Not deep. Maybe 2 feet down. A black trash bag. I froze. Pulled it out slowly. The smell hit before I even opened it. My hands went numb. I peeled back the plastic and saw fur. Wet, matted. Golden. I dropped to my knees. I knew it was him. I buried him again. In my own yard this time. Gave him a real grave. Marked it with one of my old boots, the ones he always chewed on when he was a puppy. That should have been the end of it. But I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. My chest felt like it was full of broken glass every time I walked past Feldman's yard. The next morning, I called off work. Sat on the porch all day. Just watching. He came out around noon. Same coffee. Same smirk. And then he looked at my yard, at Duke's grave, and said, loud enough for me to hear, "Now you're finally keeping him quiet." That was it. Something in me snapped. After that, I stopped trying to be civil. I didn't wave. Didn't look his way. But I watched. Every move. I learned his routine. Morning coffee at 7:30. Limp to the mailbox by 8 o'clock. Nap from about 1 to 3 in the back room, blinds always drawn. His trash days. His gardening habits. Everything. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was patient. And I started planning. I knew I couldn't just accuse him. The cops wouldn't care, and even if they did, he'd lie. He's good at that. Calm. Old. Harmless looking. He knew what he was doing. So I started collecting things. Old footage from my outdoor camera. Nothing showed him hurting Duke, but it did show him standing at the fence some nights, just staring. I looked up every animal complaint on the city website. Found that he had filed 3 noise complaints about Duke in the last year, all dropped, because no one else had ever complained. But it was something. Then I remembered something. 2 months ago, he had a landscaper come by, some kid with a truck. They trimmed the trees between our properties. Feldman paid him in cash. I still had the number on the back of a flyer he'd left in my mailbox. I called him. Kid's name was Ronnie. I asked if he remembered anything odd about Mr. Feldman. He was quiet for a second, then said, "Dude's weird. Paid me double just to cut branches real low on your side. Said he wanted a better line of sight." That was enough for me. I put everything together. Notes. Footage. Dates. Photos. I went to a lawyer, a friend of a friend, and asked what my options were. He said, legally, without a confession or a witness, I'd get nowhere on the dog. But property damage? Harassment? Trespassing? There was a case there, especially if Feldman touched my side of the fence or buried something in my yard. So I waited. A week later, I left a note on my own gate that said, "New security system installed. Trespassers will be recorded and prosecuted." I angled one of the cameras to face the grave. Made sure the red light blinked at night. And I waited. It took 3 days. I was sitting inside just after midnight when the alert pinged my phone. Motion detected. I opened the live feed and saw him. Feldman. Limping across the yard with a small shovel. Looking around. Sweating. He walked right up to the grave. Started digging. I let the camera record for 5 full minutes. Then I stepped outside, phone in hand, camera light flashing red like a siren. He froze. Shovel halfway buried. I said nothing. He just looked at me. Face pale, hands shaking. I raised the phone. "Smile, asshole." He dropped the shovel. I called the police right there. But that's not the end. The cops showed up 20 minutes later. By then, Feldman was back on his porch, pretending like nothing happened. But I had the footage. I showed them everything. They took the shovel. Took photos of the disturbed dirt. Took statements from both of us. Feldman lied through his teeth. Said he was just checking something suspicious in my yard. Claimed he saw an animal digging. Said he didn't know anything about my dog. That he'd never heard a creature in his life. But the cops didn't buy it. Not this time. One of them pulled me aside and said, "Look, we can't arrest him over a dog, not unless you have the body and proof he killed it. But trespassing? Harassment? You might have a case there." I filed a restraining order the next morning. The footage was enough to get it granted. That should have been the end. I thought it was. But Feldman wasn't done. The next week, nails started showing up in my driveway. First 1. Then 3. Then a whole handful scattered like confetti under my tires. My front passenger went flat while I was driving to the grocery store. I checked my cameras. Nothing. He was smart. Stayed out of frame. I replaced them with better ones. Hidden ones. The next night, I caught him again. Just barely, his hand reaching through the fence, tossing something small and silver onto my lawn. I didn't call the police this time. I uploaded the footage. Posted it online. Shared it with the HOA. Sent it to every neighbor within 5 houses. Titled it, "This Man Killed My Dog. Now He's Throwing Nails into My Yard." It spread faster than I expected. Within a day, the entire block was talking. His porch light stayed off that night. The next morning, someone spray painted the word murderer on the sidewalk in front of his house. I didn't do it. I didn't need to. He stopped coming outside. But that's when something even darker started. A letter came in the mail. No return address. No name. Just a folded piece of paper. Inside, "You should have kept your mouth shut." That dog was the first warning. I read it 5 times. Couldn't stop shaking. I installed a deadbolt on every door. Bought motion lights. Kept a baseball bat by my bed. I didn't leave town. Didn't run. But I felt it, the line had been crossed. This wasn't about Duke anymore. This was about control. Punishment. And I started thinking, maybe this man had done this before. Maybe Duke wasn't the first. I kept that letter locked in a drawer. Didn't tell the cops. Didn't tell my lawyer. Something in me knew it wouldn't matter. It was just vague enough to be ignored. But I didn't ignore it. I reread it every night. Kept asking myself what kind of man writes something like that, and why. A week passed. Then 2. Feldman didn't come outside anymore. His blinds stayed shut, lawn overgrown. His trash cans never moved. It was like he disappeared. But one thing stayed the same, the humming. Every night around 9:30, faint through the walls. A low, slow hum. Same melody. Over and over. Like some old song you don't recognize but feel like you've heard your whole life. It made my skin crawl. Then, one night, I saw her. A woman, standing at his back door. Mid-30s. Long black hair. Holding a bag of groceries. I had never seen her before, ever. She knocked once, then let herself in with a key. Door closed behind her. I waited. Watched. No lights came on. No car in the driveway. She stayed inside for almost 2 hours, then left on foot, disappearing down the street. I didn't sleep that night. Next morning, I went digging, not in dirt, but online. I looked up Feldman's full name. Property records. Court records. Anything. Then I found it. 10 years ago, another house. Another town. A noise complaint filed by 3 neighbors. Details were minimal, but one report stood out. A woman had written, "Dog disappeared. Last seen barking at night through shared fence." Neighbor threatened it. Police did nothing. The man she filed it against? Feldman. No charges were ever filed. The woman moved a year later. That was it. The last crack in the dam. I drove to the local records office, pulled up everything I could on his old property. Took pictures. Printed them out. The next night, I put it all in an envelope and slid it under his door. No note. Just silence. And that's when it happened. 2 nights later, I woke up to the sound of something scraping metal outside. I looked out the window, saw movement near my back door. I grabbed the bat and my phone. Hit record before I even turned on the light. It was Feldman. Crouched down, screwdriver in hand, trying to unscrew my door handle. I opened the door fast, and he fell backward onto the ground. "Get off my property!" I shouted. He just sat there, breathing heavy, holding his wrist like he'd hurt it. Then he said, dead calm, "You should have let the past stay buried." I called the cops. They took him in that night. Trespassing. Attempted break-in. They found the screwdriver and gloves on him. No tools for fixing anything, just for getting inside. But the cops didn't hold him. Not for long. He was back the next day. And the humming started again. Louder now. I still live here. The grave is still in my yard, and his windows still face it. Some nights, I think I hear Duke barking, and I sit up straight in bed, like maybe it was all a mistake, maybe he's just lost somewhere. But it's just the wind. Or worse, that humming. And every time I step outside, I wonder if this is over, or if he's just waiting for me to let my guard down again. Sometimes I think the scariest part isn't what he did, it's how easy it was for him to keep doing it.